Hello everyone, we are discussing the chapter tissues. We have discussed about plant tissues and we are doing animal tissues now. We have already discussed epithelial tissue and connective tissue. We are discussing at present three different types of connective tissues are there, that is connecting tissue, skeleton tissue and fluid tissue. Connecting tissue is further of two different types, that is ligament and tendon, and skeleton tissue, that is of also two types, that is bone and cartilage, and we have discussed about them in the previous lessons. Today we are going to discuss about the fluid tissue. As far as fluid tissue is concerned, as the name suggests, it must be some kind of liquid which can flow from one place to another place, and because liquids they can flow from one place to another place, so they also help in transporting the materials. These materials which are transported through fluid tissue, they may be useful materials like food and oxygen, and it may be waste material like excretory products or carbon dioxide which needs to be transported from the organ where they are produced or required to the place from where they can be excreted or from where they can be obtained. So depending upon this fluid tissue, it helps in taking the material from one place to another place. As far as fluid tissues are concerned, there are two different types of fluid tissues. They are called as blood and lymph. Blood, it is further consisting of two parts, that is blood cells and blood plasma. Blood cells are the cells which are floating in the fluid part, which is called as the blood plasma. We all know blood is red in color, and that red color is because of the red blood cells. Whereas plasma, which is the fluid part, that is straw colored. Straw colored means slightly palish in color or light yellow colored liquid. We all know that blood cells, they are of further three different types: RBCs, WBCs and platelets. These all cells, they float in the non-living substance which is called as the fluid matrix or plasma. These RBCs, they are red in color, and we all know that they help in carrying oxygen from one place to another place. Whereas WBCs, they are the amoeboid cells which we know that they help in killing the germs. So because they can kill the germs, they can protect our body from different infections. That is why they are called as the soldiers of the body. Because just like soldiers, they protect our body from the invaders, that may be germs or disease carrying microorganisms. Platelets are broken parts of the cells, and we know platelets, they help in clotting of blood. Now we remember that what is clotting of blood? Clotting of blood means forming a patch over the cut or injury, so that the injury can be sealed and loss of blood can be prevented from that place. So that way there are three different types of blood cells which are floating in plasma. Let us talk about lymph. Lymph is filtered blood. Filtered blood means when blood passes through capillaries, then some fluid part of the blood, it comes out, it oozes out. Because I hope you remember that capillaries are made up of single layer of cells. So if this is a capillary, then when blood flows through it, then the cells, they remain inside because they are bigger in size, whereas the liquid part, it oozes out and it gets collected in the space in which the tissue is floated. That means that if there are some tissues which are present in this space, then this liquid which is coming out of the capillary, it will be present in the intercellular spaces, so that tissue can bathe in this liquid. That part is called as lymph. So that is why it is called as filtered blood. That means if you take blood and out of that all blood cells are removed, then the liquid part, that is called as the lymph. There are certain proteins which are present in blood which are bigger in size. So they also cannot come out of the capillaries. So the composition of plasma and lymph is different. Lymph will be containing the blood proteins, whereas they may not be present in the lymph. Another characteristic feature is that WBCs, because they are amoeboid cells and they can pass out of narrow spaces, so that is why they also ooze out. So the concentration of WBCs in lymph is more. Thus, lymph helps in carrying out some functions of the blood, but it cannot carry out the function of taking oxygen from one place to another place. Reason being that RBCs are present only in the blood. RBCs, they have bigger size, so because of that they are not present in the lymph. The function of lymph is that this lymph which is present in the interstitial space, or the space which is present between tissue and the capillary, so this lymph, it can dissolve the respiratory gases in it, and it can enter into the blood capillary and thus help in taking the respiratory gases from the tissues to the blood. And because it is having WBCs, so it can also help in protecting the body against the infections. So that means that some of the functions of blood and lymph are similar, but there are some differences also which you should remember. Fluid tissue transport oxygen and nutrients to the body. So what is the function of fluid tissue? That it helps in transport, and it transport nutrients as well as oxygen. Similarly, it can also help in transport of carbon dioxide and excretory product. So that means that the blood which is present in the capillary, that contains more of oxygen and more of nutrients when it is present in the arteries. You know that arteries, they are the distributing vessels, so they carry more of nutrients. This nutrient and oxygen is passed on to tissue, where due to certain chemical reaction, carbon dioxide and excretory products are produced, which through lymph enters into the blood capillary again. And I hope you remember that capillaries, they join to form veins. So veins, they will be carrying the blood which is containing more of carbon dioxide and more of excretory product. There are certain glands which produce hormones. Now these hormones, they also have to reach the target organ, because hormones, they are produced at one place and used at some other place in the body. So how the hormone will go from one place to another place, that is also through blood, because hormones, they are poured into the blood, and with the blood they are taken from one place to other place. So that means blood as well as lymph, both of them, they help in carrying out very important function of transport of materials from one place to another place in animal body. Let us try to understand some more differences in blood and lymph. We know blood is a red liquid, and this red liquid, it is present or it flows only through arteries, veins and capillaries, whereas lymph, it is colorless or pale yellow in color, and it doesn't flow through the arteries or veins or capillaries. Rather, it is the fluid in which tissue bathes in it. That means that tissue is present in the it is submerged, or it is this liquid lymph is present in the interstitial spaces, so it is in very close contact with the tissue cells. And in case of blood, we have circulatory system which is made up of arteries, veins and capillaries, whereas lymph is circulated through lymphatic system. And blood, it has blood cells, that is RBCs, WBCs and platelet, whereas lymph, it does not have RBCs, and because of that it is colorless. So what do we understand from this? That blood is the main transporting fluid, whereas lymphatic system, it supports transporting tissue. Ultimately, all lymph is poured into the blood. And another difference may be that, as we saw, that through the capillaries, the bigger proteins cannot come out. So the composition of blood is that it contains larger proteins, where such proteins are absent in the case of lymph. Now, in case of blood, we know that blood clots very fast because the platelets, they get entangled in the fibrinogen, whereas in case of lymph, the lymph, it clots very slowly. Because it doesn't have blood cells. So it does clot because of fibrinogen, because fibrinogen is present in blood as well as in lymph, but clotting rate is very less in case of lymph. So this is how we can see that there are certain differences in blood and lymph. So with this we have completed the topic connective tissue, and in all these different examples we have seen that connective tissue, it consists of cells which are floating in the matrix. In all these examples we could see that there are cells which are floating in some matrix which is present in the interstitial spaces, and different types of cells are present which are performing different types of function. So in connecting tissue we have studied about tendon and ligament, which are quite similar, but yet there are certain fine differences between them. Similarly, between bone and cartilage, they have some common function, help in forming the skeletal system, but there are certain differences. Similarly, for fluid, blood and lymph, two different examples we have seen, which are quite similar because they are doing some similar functions, whereas there are some differences. So I hope you will be able to understand it from this lesson. In the next class, we will study about the third type of tissue, that is muscular tissue. So with that, we have completed two types of animal tissue, and in the next class we will study about muscular tissue, where we will be talking about different types of muscles.